Everyone thinks moving to the Philippines is about romance and meeting a young girl, but they're completely missing the crushing reality of the economic situation here. If you don't understand the true cost of living here, you might be broke within 6 months. Today I'm dissecting the raw financial numbers, what it costs each month to survive here in the Philippines. The true cost of living equation. The surging utility costs, the cost of high-speed internet, which are becoming compatible with countries in the West. Monthly expenses, food, electricity, which they call current here. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Things have changed here in the 6 years I've been here, and stuff is getting more expensive. So if you're coming to the Philippines, you need to know this ahead of time. Let's go through the list. So my monthly expenses here, it's me, my fiance, and our baby, so it's not just me I'm taking care of. I have a little more to take care of now. So let's start with food. Our Robinsons bill per month, and Robinsons, if you don't know, is the grocery store that's westernized. You know, you get a lot of Western stuff there. And if you are going to get stuff from the West, you have to realize it's going to cost more. Like, say, if you want a quart of apple cider vinegar like you get in the West, it's 10 bucks, 500 pesos. So in the West, I believe it's 2/3 of that. It's not cheap in the West. And anything coming from the West, same thing with Western style spaghetti sauce, you're gonna pay more than you will at Walmart in the United States. So my Robinsons bill for me, my fiance, and my daughter is about 8,000 pesos a month. So usually we go there about twice a month, sometimes 3 times a month, and we usually spend about 4,000 pesos, which is about $80 each time we go. That's getting stuff like milk from Australia, because the milk from the Philippines is terrible. So that milk's gonna be a little more. You know, you save 20 or 30 pesos a quart if you get milk from the Philippines. And dark chocolate, which I love, and you know, as a healthy snack, I get that. That's about 1/3 more than it costs in the US, which it's gone way up in the US. Ground coffee instead of the instant coffee everybody drinks here, which is actually, it's hard to find in bigger bags, but the small bags, you know, they cost 250 pesos for the Robinsons brand for 250 milligrams, yeah. So that's just Robinsons for food. That's not including the wet market. The wet market is Robinsons, I have to drive about 20 minutes to get there. And the wet market is a little closer here. You know, it's right in town, but the wet market's going to cost me about 4,000 pesos a month. And that's where we get our meat, fresh vegetables, and that's about it. But the vegetables are very fresh, but vegetables have also gone up a lot. My neighbor's a fisherman, so I'll buy fish from my neighbors. They get these needle fish sometimes, a big fish with like a needle nose. Really good tasting white meat fish, and then they sell it to me for around 300 pesos per kilo, which is a good price. You get a little worse price at the market if you go there. But we also get fish at the market, and chicken, and my fiance loves pork. It's all around 300 pesos a kilo. Try and stick with the chicken. I really like chicken liver, better than chicken actually. I used to be a vegetarian back in the States, but it's hard to be a vegetarian here. Vegetables like American lettuce is 600 pesos a kilo. That's $12. Yeah, $12 a kilo, which is very expensive. Now, tomatoes are grown everywhere, so they're 40 pesos per kilo. So under $1 per kilo. You know, mangoes, depending where you go, 50 to 100 pesos per kilo. The new house I'm going to talk about in a little bit that I'm going to move into soon has a mango tree right in front of it. So as long as mangoes are in season, I could just pick them right there. Okay, so food we have about 8,000 a month at Robinsons at the supermarket, and about another 4,000 at the wet market. And then various stuff I'll pick up. Like yesterday I got tomatoes and potatoes for dinner, a half a kilo of each. No big deal, it was 80 pesos. Potatoes are cheap here too. They have these purple potatoes called uve, which are delicious, which are also cheap here. So 8,000 at Robinsons, about 4,000 at the wet market, and then about another 2,000 just miscellaneous stuff. So what does that come to? 12, 13, 14,000. So let's say $300 a month. And so that's the grocery market. And then on eating out, there's not a ton of nice restaurants. The Filipino local restaurants are very cheap. but it's the same food you can make at home. You know, it's adobe this, adobe that, you know, street food, this kind of stuff. I mean, it's $1 for a lunch, but most of the portion you're gonna get is rice. You know, they always say there's more rice, you know, but I don't even eat rice anymore. It affects my digestive system in a bad way, so I don't eat it. So, okay, moving on. Rent. Right now, the place I'm renting, I'll give you a little tour of it, but it's $10,000 a month, which is around $200, which that's where you really save your money in the Philippines, is in your rent. And then my current, they call it current here, we call it electricity in the US. The current is $4,000 or $5,000 a month. So let's just say $5,000 a month. So that's $100. That's with 2 air conditioners, one here in my office and one in our apartment, which contains our kitchen and our bedroom. You know, and then we have this outer part with a solar that doesn't have an air conditioner. A solar here in the Philippines is a living area that doesn't have an air conditioner, but my office here does have an air conditioner. So 2 air conditioners, computers and phones and everything, about $100 a month. And then Wi-Fi on top of that. I used to get Wi-Fi for about $15 a month about a year ago. Since I moved here where I'm living now, more in the province, there's less options available, so I moved up to about $28 a month, $30 a month. It's 1,399 pesos. For that, I did get higher speeds. I get guaranteed 100 megabytes per second, but up to 200 megabytes per second. You know, it's PDLT, which is a major Wi-Fi provider here, or internet provider. So if there is an issue with it, I could call them and they usually deal with it pretty quick. Once in a while, I think once so far in the 3 months I've been here, that I had a full day and a half of no internet before they fixed it. Other than that, sometimes it'll slow down to like 20 megabytes per second. I call them on, they have a phone here that comes with your internet. You just call them on that phone. It's like a 3-digit number and they deal with it pretty quickly. They're able to deal with it from the office a lot, so they must prioritize certain channels and stuff like that. I don't know how they do it, but so that's internet. So far we're at about 15,000 for food, say 300, 200 for rent, another 200, 500, internet, $30, and then electricity, another 100. So let's say 600, 700. The wet market is roughly another $100 a month for vegetables and stuff like that. So beside those monthly expenses, then we have things like medical. I have a 6-month-old baby, almost 6 months. Dental, and any other miscellaneous stuff that comes up. Visa costs, like I have a visa I have to pay for. I'm only engaged to my fiance, so my visa costs are about, even when we get married, the visa cost is still about $600 a year for a married couple. The expat or foreigner still has to pay about $600 a year for the marriage visa, or that's what I heard anyway. I'm gonna have to look into that more, so don't quote me on that. But like this month, I got my 2-month visa extension, and I'm at this point, I've been here for 5 months already, and the 2-month visa extension, last time it cost 4,000 pesos, $80. This time it costs 8,000 pesos because you have to get an ACR card, which is basically like just an ID card. It's mandatory to get it, and it costs an extra 4,000 pesos. And this is my 3rd or 4th one. It expires after a year, so they make you get it. They make you get it again when it expires. It's kind of a scam. It costs $80 each time, but you know, you can factor in, if you're an expat living here, you know, another $80 to $100 a month in visa costs. So right now we're roughly at about $800 a month. You know, whatever guys tell you, you can't live in the Philippines for $500 a month. And if I was living in Manila, my rent would be much more. But I do have a pretty nice place for $10,000 a month, and that's where I really save money from not living in the US. And probably on electricity and phones. I haven't gotten to phones yet. Our phone costs, we run our phones mostly on the Wi-Fi because we're at home mostly. But when we go out, we just get like if I go to Manila, I went there a few months ago, I just get a 7-day plan, which costs 99 pesos, $2 for gigabytes of data. And when it runs out, you just get another 199 or 99 peso plan. And you get longer ones, there's all kind of options, but I just find it easiest to get that. You buy it on GCash, you don't have to go to the store, you can just do it on your phone. and that's it. When you're traveling, but when I'm home, I just mostly use Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi calling, and don't really worry about a 30-day plan. Like, it's much different than the US. Phones here are much cheaper than they are in the US. Okay, what else? Various expenses. Like I was saying, dental, baby, the pediatrician, we go to like once a month. We have Phil Health for my fiance and the baby, which costs like, it's negligible almost what it costs, like $50 to $100 a year. When I take my baby to the doctor, it costs usually 300, 400, 500, 600 pesos. It's different. She wasn't pooping a few months ago, so she had to get an x-ray to see if, there was something going on there. There wasn't, she just had extra sticky poop, but that's besides the point. So I had to pay extra for an x-ray. I think it was 300 pesos. So the doctor visits for my daughter are almost negligible, but let's say 1,000 pesos a month for that, depending on the month. She had to get medicine, a stool softener for babies to help her poop. That costs 300 pesos, and I've been getting that each month. So it's like 1,000 a month for the baby. And then various stuff I bought for the baby, in the last few months. I just bought her a high chair that was 2,600 pesos, about $50. I bought her a stroller a few months ago that was about 10,000 pesos, $200. A crib, 10,000 pesos, about $200. And those I get at the Robinsons department store. You could get used ones and buy them on Temu and stuff, but I just don't trust on Temu. They're about the same price actually, so I just don't trust that it's going to come and not be like this miniature thing. I don't know if you're familiar with Temu. I'm going to start doing some Temu videos actually. If you guys are interested in that, just let me know in the comments. The dentist. Now, my fiance has to go to the dentist. She's not working now because she had a baby and she's watching the baby, so I'm paying all the bills. So she has to go to the dentist once a month. She has braces. Like a lot of adults here have braces. It's just the way it is. People don't get braces when they're kids here. They get braces when they're old enough to afford and pay for it themselves. So her braces cost 1,000 to 2,000, 1,000 to 4,000 pesos a month, depending on what they have to do. So $20 to $80 a month. And if I go in and get a cleaning while I'm there, it's another 1,000 pesos a month. So let's say 2,000 a month for that. So basically we're up to about $1,000. I'm living a good life here, doing everything I want to do, and that's not including miscellaneous travel. We went to Ilocos Norte for the weekend last weekend, and we got an Airbnb, and we spent $500 for the weekend. That's different. So, but I budget about 2,000 a month, and I say if you want to come to the Philippines and you want to live a good life, you could do it on a budget of about 2,000 a month, as long as you're not living in BGC where you're going to be paying, $6,000, $8,000, $1,000 a month for rent. If you live in the province, you could really save on what's frankly one of the biggest expenses in the Western world, which is rent and housing. Now, if you guys like these videos, go ahead and subscribe. Walking Man Walks. I'm going to start doing some videos on land I'm looking at, buying land, the complications of buying land, what your rights are as a foreigner for buying land, and what your rights are buying land with your wife, starting a business. I'm looking into setting up an Airbnb on the land I'm buying. So stay tuned for all that. I also have my workouts and stuff on here if you guys are interested in any of that. If you like this video, check out this video here about this waterfall we went to a few weeks ago. It's really cool. And I will see you next time.